Well, welcome everyone. Hi, I'm Paula Morrison, and I'm a practice lead from the research department at Interior Health, and my focus is on long-term care and seniors. Um, and I'm excited to welcome Shianne, who is a lead at Interior Health in injury prevention and safety promotion. I'm really grateful that Shianne has agreed to present today, and happy St. Patrick's Day to those who celebrate that holiday. I'd like to begin that interior health is situated on many traditional areas, but I'm currently on the traditional ancestral unceded territory of the Silks Okanagan Nation. And I'd also like you to consider acknowledging that where you're joining from today, maybe many places near and far, and maybe we acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of the land. Welcome to the 13th Annual Okanagan Embrace Aging Month, and thank you for joining us today. Appreciate that. Embrace Aging is co-hosted by Interior Health and the Institute for Healthy Living and Chronic Disease Prevention of UBC Okanagan. Embrace Aging Month was launched 13 years ago to celebrate and raise awareness about aging, and has been organized with a number of educational opportunities and events during the month of March. And the beauty of them is they're often free. Some of them are online, some of them are available in person. And the sessions are designed for everyone, young and old alike. And the focus is on a variety of topics related to healthy aging and ways to improve quality of life among seniors and their caregivers, and everyone in the community. Our goal is to inspire everyone to embrace positive aging. Oh, take a breath. Closed captioning. To turn closed captioning off, you can select the hide caption button on the menu bar. And if you have questions, Cheyenne's presentation is in sections, so please feel free to ask after each section and we'll prompt you on that. You can type your questions into the chat if you'd like. We'll also be asking for feedback for the event, so there'll be a survey that'll be emailed out to you, and Cheyenne's kindly agreed to have her presentation shared and some resources to be shared by the email. So don't worry too much about the notes unless you want to take notes. Today's event is brought to you with the support of Embrace Aging Month, and today's session is called Fall and Injury Prevention for Older Adults. And our speaker is Shianne Bains, and I'm going to pass the virtual mic over to you and yeah, and let you take the reins. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction, Paula. Great to see everyone online. Well, I can't see you, but I can see the number of how many of you there are. As Paula mentioned, my presentation will be in sections, so please feel free to put your questions in the chat as I go through, and I'll pause at the end of each section and do my best to answer as many of them as I can. And I'll also leave time at the end as well for questions. So thank you, Paula, for the land acknowledgement. I'll just add that today I'm calling you from the never ceded territories of the Kakite First Nation, which is colonially known as New Westminster. I'm located in the Lower Mainland today. So you've got to start off by defining a fall. So what is a fall? It's any unintentional coming to rest on the ground, floor, or any other lower level, whether or not the person is injured. So when we think about that definition, a lot of things can be classified as a fall. If I get up from a chair and I slump back into it or fall back into it, that's technically a fall. If I get up from my bed and I fall back into my bed, that's technically a fall. So it's quite a broad definition of a fall. Um, and when I talk about data, we'll make some notes about that in a moment. So, falls are the leading cause of injury among older Canadians. So, other types of injury would be like drowning, car crashes, even things like heat exhaustion. So, injury is quite a broad topic, poisonings, but falls are by far the leading cause by more than quadruple when we look at the number of hospitalizations and the number of deaths. So 1 in 3 seniors will have a fall each year in BC. They cause 85% of all of the injury-related hospitalizations and 95% of all hip fractures. And we know how devastating a hip fracture can be. Some more kind of sad stats. Every day, 3 older adults die in BC due to a fall-related injury. And maybe surprising to you, maybe not, but 50% of falls causing a hospitalization actually happen at home. But enough doom and gloom, because the good news is that falls are preventable, and I promise that most of my presentation will talk about some of those preventable tips. But before I get into that, I'd like to talk about the risk factors for a fall. So what actually makes someone at higher risk of having a fall? And we put this into 4 categories. So there's the biological, things to do with your body, the behavioral, these are the choices we make. We have a lot of control over these ones, the social economic, and the environmental. So, starting off with biological risk factors, this is anything due to the human body. So, if you have trouble with balance, mobility, muscle strength, coordination, your cognition and mood, any health conditions that you might have, fainting, dizziness, trouble sleeping, vision and hearing impairments, and age and gender. Unfortunately, the older you get, the greater your risk of falling just with age. Then we talk about behavioral risk factors. So this is related to individual actions, emotions, and choices. So maybe having a fear of falling, a lack of physical activity, maybe overestimating abilities, improper use of equipment. I'm going to talk about mobility aids later in the presentation. And in my role prior to my current role, I worked at the Fraser Health Fall Prevention Clinic, and we often saw people misusing their mobility aids. So I'll try to touch on that. Inappropriate footwear, if you use substances, poor nutrition, and risk-taking behavior. Socioeconomic, so this is kind of related to, sorry, ignore that top orange line there, but this is kind of related more to your environment around you, but your social environment, so communication and language barriers. I note that a lot of these, probably most of these presentations are done in English, so if English wasn't your first language, that could be a barrier. Living alone, a lack of support network, limited access to services and transport, different costs. And then we have the income, education, housing, and cultural factors as well. So all of these can play a role into someone's overall risk of falling. And then I ended off with environmental risk factors. I think these are the ones that we all think about as being your typical risk factors for fall. So weather, it's an icy day out, clutter, stairs, other tripping hazards like loose rugs or uneven flooring or uneven sidewalk, slippery surfaces, and poor lighting and contrast. So I think those are the ones we most often maybe think about and associate to falls. I just want to note that the more risk factors you have, the higher your chance of having a fall. But again, this is a lot of doom and gloom. I promise that the rest of the presentation will really be focused on things that you can do, tangible things that you can do to reduce this risk of falling. Because not all the risk factors are in your control. The biological, the social, and even some of the environment ones are out of your control. So it's important that we do positive things to offset some of this risk. So, that brings us to the main part of the presentation. So what can you do to prevent falls? So we're going to put it into 4 categories. We call them the 4 pillars of fall prevention. So that's vision, medication, home safety, and exercise. And what I'll do is I'll pause after each of those 4 sections, and that's when I'll take questions. And I can see the chat, so I'll try to keep my eye on that as well as I go through. So let's start off with vision. The most important thing you can do for your vision is have your eyes checked by an eye doctor at least once a year. There is different grants and subsidies available for older adults to help with some of the cost of that. But what are some common vision deficits? I really like this slide because it really it kind of shows you how some of these common vision problems affect your eyesight. So you have cataracts in the top left. On the bottom left, glaucoma, top right, age-related macular degeneration, and the bottom right, diabetic retinopathy. So these are some of the common vision deficits that you can get as you age and how they affect your vision. So what can you actually do? Correct vision. So this kind of plays on making sure you're going to the eye doctor and updating your prescriptions. I had to get mad at my dad the other day because his prescription was like 10 years old and he just throws on his glasses. So I really encouraged him to get those checked and make sure it really is the right prescription. Making sure your glasses are clean. I'm also a glasses wearer and I'm notorious for letting them get super, super dirty. Lighting. So making sure you have lighting around your home and outside your home. But lighting can also be about glare. So on a super sunny day, sometimes hanging lightweight curtains can help reduce glare. So we don't always think about lighting just as, oh, it's too dark, but it could also be too bright. Avoiding multifocal lenses. This one's a little bit what's the word? Controversial, I would say. So the research does show that for if you were getting a pair of glasses today, you do have a higher risk of falling if you got multifocal lenses. That's your bifocals, one's a little box, or the trifocals, rather than a single lens. So switching between a nearsighted and farsighted pair of glasses. What I will say, if you've been, using multifocals for a long time and you're comfortable with it, probably fine to continue, but just sharing that. Using eye drops correctly. So if you're using eye drops, especially ones that blur your vision, just making sure that you're sitting and you're not, putting them in and then running around. And then modifying your environment. So what I mean by that is I've got two pictures here and I'll give you a quick couple seconds to look at them, but I think it's pretty obvious which one is easier to see the railing and the stairs, the one on the right there. And that's because we've added contrast to it. So the black on the white helps us to see contrast better. And having contrast better not only helps with our depth perception, so making sure we catch each step correctly, but also for avoiding or having those visual cues to avoid collisions or crashing into things. So sometimes you might have like white bedding, white carpet, white walls, and sometimes it's hard to actually catch where the end of that bed is. So adding contrast can really help with things like that. Okay, I don't see any questions yet, so I'm going to continue moving along. We're going to talk about medications next. So lots of reasons why medications can increase your risk of falling, and I'll go through some of those reasons in a moment. But what I really want to encourage folks to do is to get a medication review done. So you can go to your pharmacy, you can also go to your family doctor, but you want to make sure that there's one person going through all of your medications and really explaining to you what the side effects of those medications could be. When I worked at that Fraser Health Falls clinic, we had a pharmacist come around with us, and it was really interesting to see that a lot of times folks might say things like, well, I've been, feeling extra dizzy, or I've been feeling really itchy, or whatever it might be. And the pharmacist was like, yep, that's because of this medication. And here's a way that we can try to mitigate that side effect. So there's sometimes things that you can do, and I know sometimes there isn't, but definitely worth having a conversation with your pharmacist or your family doctor, especially when we're getting medications prescribed by many doctors. If you've got, your heart doctor and your kidney doctor and your family doctor, and you might have gone to the hospital. So we might be getting medications from a lot of different sources. Really important to have one person review all of those for you. So some of those potential medication effects is drowsiness. So lots of medications can make us drowsy. It might decrease your coordination. It might increase dizziness. Some medications can cause visual disturbances. Some can decrease your blood pressure, which means that you'll get more dizzy and lightheaded when you stand up. Some can decrease your blood sugar. And then you can increase your fracture risk and bleeding risk. So, not necessarily increasing your risk of falls, but increasing your risk of injury from a fall. So, we think about some of those like typical blood thinners, they can increase your risk of bleeding. So, if you were to have a fall, greater risk of bleeding. And some medications can increase your risk of fracture. So, they're not super good for your bones. So, if you were to have a fall, you might be at a higher risk of having a fracture. So, important to know those risk factors for yourself. Okay, on the note of medications, I also want to talk a lot about blood pressure. So, I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, have had our blood pressure taken while sitting. And occasionally, some people have said they've had their blood pressure taken while lying down. But I'm curious if you've ever had your blood pressure taken while standing. So, what we like to do is we like to have you sitting for 5 minutes, get relaxed, check your blood pressure. Then I want you to stand up and I want you to check your blood pressure again. Does that number stay the same? Does it go up? Does it go down? Ideally, we want it to stay the same or go up, but a lot of times we see that your blood pressure drops, and that can put you at increased risk of falling right when you get up. And sometimes the effect's not immediate. So sometimes you might have it, when the next you get up and it's within 10 seconds, but up to a minute after standing, your blood pressure can drop, and that can put you at an increased risk for falls. I think especially about like getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. You might get up and feel fine, right away, but you might get dizzy or lightheaded and be a bit stumbly kind of later on as you're walking. And that can be because your blood pressure is dropping. There's a really easy way to mitigate this. So all you have to do is pump your heels before standing. So you basically have your feet flat on the floor and you lift your heels up one at a time, go up and down, up and down. You can do it right now, like I'm doing. And you do that for about 15 to 30 seconds before you stand up. And what that helps is that it helps go against gravity. So when you're sitting, your blood likes to go down to your legs because gravity. And what this does is it contracts your calf muscles and it forces the blood back up to the rest of your body. And hopefully that causes your blood pressure to drop less or not at all when you stand up. So I really encourage just to take the extra 15 to 30 seconds and pump those heels before standing. Okay, also in the kind of realm of medications, we talk about vitamins. A ton of important vitamins, and I am not a dietitian or a pharmacist, so I'm just going to focus on the ones that I know are good for actually injury prevention rather than maybe saying fall prevention. And those are calcium and vitamin D. So I've taken these from the Osteoporosis Canada guidelines. And so if you are over the age of 50, you're aiming to get 1,200 milligrams of calcium and between 800 and 2,000 units of vitamin D. Now, you can get calcium from your food, as we all know. You can also get it from a supplement. I would really encourage you to talk to your pharmacist or a dietitian, and I'll give you some resources for that shortly, about calcium and vitamin D because there's a lot of nuances to it. So, for example, you don't want to take your calcium supplement perhaps with your iron supplement. And other things you want to consider is that if you're taking 1,000 milligrams of calcium, your body only absorbs a certain amount. So you might actually only be absorbing 500 milligrams of that. So the pharmacist and the dietitian can help you determine the best timing, the best type, because when we look at vitamin D and there's lots of types, you can take it daily, weekly. I feel like even recently I saw that you could take it monthly, but like I said, talk to a pharmacist or a dietitian about that. And they can help you figure out what would be best and the best way for you to take it. And they are a great resource for that. Calcium, I think we all know, strong bones. That's why we like it for injury prevention when it comes to falls. And the vitamin D is really important because, well, vitamin D does a lot of good things, but in the context of injury prevention, vitamin D helps your body to absorb the calcium. So that's where they work in tandem together. Okay, so how do you talk to I know it's a time of very hard to connect with our healthcare professionals, but I really want to put an emphasis in on 811. So you might be aware of 811. It's a free provincial health information and advice phone line. You can call it from anywhere in BC. Um, and we maybe used to know it as the nurses hotline, but what a lot of folks don't know is they have dietitians, exercise professionals, and pharmacists that you can talk to. So the dietitians and exercise professionals are like a Monday to Friday, maybe 8 or 9 a.m. to like 5 p.m. And then the pharmacist works after hours, so like 5 p.m. onwards. So you're welcome to call this line and you can still talk to the nurse 24/7, but you can definitely talk to a dietitian and ask them the questions about the supplements, or you can wait till later in the evening and call the pharmacist and ask about the vitamins and your medications. You can ask. I will also add that they have it available in like over 140 languages. And you can call 711 if you're hard of hearing. So they have lots of accommodations as well with the line. So I highly, highly recommend that you make that phone call. Maybe not all at once after this. It's after this presentation, you're gonna clog up the phone lines, but it's a great resource. Okay, still not seeing any questions in the chat. Let me know, Paula and Jaquetta, if I'm missing any, but I'm just gonna keep moving on here. Okay, so the next pillar is home safety. So removing risk factors within your home. I'm going to be honest, a lot of these are probably pretty common sense. We probably know we got to do them. It's just a matter of actually doing some of them. So removing things you can trip over, like books and shoes from stairs and places that you walk. Removing small throw rugs. I know we all love our rugs, especially the loose ones. So if you're really keen on keeping them, try to use double-sided tape to keep the rugs from slipping so that they really are stuck to the ground and not so slippery. For items that you use most often, try to keep them in cabinets you can reach easily. So I caught myself on my tippy toes reaching for my oil above my stove. And I thought, I do use this oil like pretty much every day. So things like that, trying to make sure that they're within, your shoulder to knee height is where we kind of have that sweet spot for things that we're using most often. Improving the lighting in your home. So we talked a little bit about this before, but reducing glare. So some lightweight curtains, and then considering things like night lights for night. Other things that we can do is using non-slip mats in the bathtub and on shower floors. Having a grab bar put in next to your toilet. So I like to remind folks that if you weigh more than a towel, you should not be using a towel bar for support because towel bars are just put in kind of superficially. Grab bars are actually, put into the walls properly so that they can withstand weight. Handrails and lights on all stairs. And we do recommend wearing shoes inside and outside the house. Some folks don't like to wear shoes inside the house, so I've got a picture of what we call like a good slipper on the right, and we'll talk about a good shoe in a moment. So you can consider wearing a slipper, but we want to avoid going barefoot or wearing loose or floppy slippers or just socks. So, choosing a safe shoe. What do we care about? So, there's a lot of things on this slide, but I'm going to tell you the three most important. You want to make sure your shoe or slipper has a back to it, so a firm heel. You want to make sure it's got a thick sole or like a sturdy bottom. And you want to make sure it's adjustable. You want to make sure that it's going to fit your foot snugly. So if I go back to this slide here, you can see how my good slipper has the heel there, so a sturdy heel. It's got a thick sole, and that Velcro there makes it adjustable. So that's what we're aiming for. And you can see on the right, I don't encourage the use of flip-flops, high heels, or open back slippers. I don't know if anyone's wearing stilettos that high anymore. I'm definitely not. Okay, I'm gonna talk a little bit about walking aids as well now. So there's a lots of different types of walking aids. And again, I can't really recommend which one you use, but I'll give you some tips for if you are using them. So when it comes to four-wheeled walkers, we have ones that fold up like the top one there, kind of in half, and you've kind of like they don't necessarily stand up on their own, all of those, and some of them don't fold. And then we have the four-wheel walker at the bottom, which lifts up in the middle and it makes it more compact and easier to put away. But what I really want to emphasize is how to use them. So when I worked at that Fraser Health Clinic, I saw many people who would push their walkers really far out in front of them. The handles were super high. Um, and it was scary to watch them walk sometimes. So here's what we want you to do. Your walker is your friend, okay? It's your best friend. You want to be as close to it as possible, right inside the handles. And if I was standing tall, I want the handles of my walker to come to about my wrist. Okay, so to my wrist. That's probably, if any of the folks on the call use a walker, that's probably lower than where you're currently doing it. But it's because we want you to push down. So people often think, oh, I've got to push forward, but actually want you to be super close to your walker, pushing down and then walking. So that's the big kind of difference there. So think push down. That's for walkers. For canes, what we want to, so I have two different pictures of canes here, and the difference there is the base of support, so how big the bottom is. A bigger base of support will give you more support, and a smaller base of support will give you less. You'll also notice that my canes that I have pictures of here, they're off center. So they've got that like hook at the top there. That's good for weight distribution. So when you have a straight cane, it can be harder on your wrist than canes that have this off center hook at the top. Same thing for measuring a cane. When you're standing tall, you can put the cane upside down and you want the tip of the cane to come to your wrist. And you're going to use your cane in the hand opposite to your bad leg. So that is sometimes not maybe intuitive, but if my bad leg was my left leg, I would actually put the cane in my right hand. And then when I step with the cane and the bad leg at the same time. And then the last one I have a picture of here would be walking poles. So these can be used for stability. That's the tip at the bottom. There's the bell tip, so that's a good tip for stability. They have many different tips, boot tips, ice pick tips, and you can decide which one would be best for you. But some folks like this because they're needing a little bit more support, but they're not ready for the cane and the walker. And walking poles kind of give you more fitness. It gets your arms moving while you walk, so you kind of get the benefit of additional fitness and additional stability when you use them. I use walking poles when I hike, and I find them very helpful. And once you get the rhythm, you've got to get the rhythm going. For walking poles, you're a little bit different to measure. It's when your arms are kind of just in like a right angle next to you is where you want to go for the height for those. But again, you can go to a medical supply store. The staff there can help you with advice if you don't have access to a physio or an OT, but obviously a physio and OT would be your best resource to determine which of these would be best for you. And obviously measuring height, but just some tips that I provided today. Okay, I also like to quickly chat about some other types of equipment that can make life just a little bit easier. So when we look at the top one on the left, we have a bath lift. So these are expensive and often not covered by extended medical, but basically what they do is they're hydraulics. You'll sit on it, kind of put your legs over one at a time, and then you can press a button and it lowers you into the tub and then picks you back up at the end. A tub transfer bench. So if you have like a tub where you're showering and stepping over is becoming a little bit more challenging, you can put a tub transfer bench in. So you take a seat, you grab the railing on the side, and then you one leg at a time step over, and then you can stand up once you're in the tub. So it's just a much safer way to get in, especially if you don't have any grab bars around your tub. That could be really good. And there's a spot for the curtain to go, so you're not, splashing water everywhere. A bed rail. So this goes in between the mattress and the box spring. So that's the one on the bottom left there. And basically what it can help you do is just get up from bed. So if you're kind of struggling to pull yourself up in the mornings, you can use that, help push up. And we always recommend that you push down to get up. We don't ever want people like pulling to get up. So if you have a table in front of you, I would never encourage you to pull yourself up. I would encourage you to push down on your chair to get up. There's lift chairs, there's one motor, two motor. One motor gives you like two or three different options for settings, and the two motors, you can kind of go any reclining that you want. And then a handy bar. This one's kind of cool. I got one for my grandpa not too long ago. So it goes into the door latch and it just gives you something to push down on. Because like I said, we want to push, not pull when you're getting out of a vehicle, especially a really small car. Make things a little bit easier. Okay, I still don't see any questions, so I'm going to keep going. Hip protectors. So what are hip protectors? Well, basically, if you remember the beginning of the presentation, I said 95% of all hip fractures happen from a fall. And so wearing a hip protector can reduce your risk of a hip fracture by up to 70%. And there's some really sad stats around hip fractures. I think it's like 1 in 4 folks after a hip fracture end up in long-term care. Folks will pass away after a hip fracture, and many of them never return to the same level of independence. So we really want to avoid hip fractures, and hip protectors are fantastic for that. So basically, what they are is like you would wear them over top of your underwear, but underneath your pants. So there's two models here. The top one I would wear under my pants. And again, when I used to work at Fraser Health, we would wear the hip protectors to show folks like we promise it doesn't make you look ugly or bulky. So you can fit them under your clothes. Or if you're like, yeah, I like the look of them, then you can have them as shorts or pants where you don't have to wear another pair of pants or shorts on top of them. So they come in different styles. The only thing I would encourage you to do is make sure you buy them from a medical supply store because hip protectors aren't regulated in the same way that like other equipment is. So For example, I could put together something and say, oh, I'm selling this hip protector on Amazon, and there's no one making sure that that hip protector actually does what it's supposed to do. So I'd really encourage you to buy it from a medical supply store. And they last a long time. So I think they last like 200 to 300 washes is like the way they word it. So you'll have them for a couple of years. Okay. And then that brings me to our very last pillar, which is maybe arguably the most important one. So hopefully I've kept your interest until now. But this is exercise. So we can really reduce your risk of falling by gaining strength and balance specifically. So we've got Canadian physical activity guidelines. They say to do 150 minutes per week of aerobic exercise. It's like your cardio, to do strength exercise twice a week, work on balance, and then you'll get some health benefits. I'll let you take a quick mental thought of what percentage do you think of folks do you think meet this guideline? Only 11%. I think we're a little bit better in BC. I think we're a little bit closer to 15, but still very, very minimal and not good enough. So, what does the evidence say? If you forget everything else I said to you today, but you remember this, there is research to show that exercise alone can be as beneficial as a multifactorial falls prevention program. So I talked about a lot of factors today. But if you really focus in on the exercise, you're going to reduce your risk of falling and it can be reduced by up to 50%. Now, it is really important that you do the right exercises because not all exercise is going to reduce your risk of falls. All exercise is very good for you and for lots of different reasons. But when it comes to reducing your risk of falling, you've got to be doing balance training. It's got to be challenging and it's got to be frequent. And you've got to be doing strength training, especially for your legs. Strength training doesn't mean I have to go lift weights at the gym if that's not what you want to do. I'm gonna send you some. Actually, this is a good time to send in the YouTube clip. So they'll put a link in the chat for you and they'll send it out after as well. So we've got some YouTube videos that show strength and balance exercises that will reduce your risk of falling, and you can do them at home. There's no equipment needed except for a chair and a counter, I think. And they're put into three levels. So in that link that they'll put in, you'll be able to decide what level you are. It kind of explains it. And then there's videos for each of those levels of all the exercises. So I would encourage you to do that and get a sense of that. When I worked at the clinic, people would say, well, I walk every day for 2 hours. And walking is amazing for you, but walking will not improve your balance or strength. So I just want to put that out there that if you're working for fall prevention, it is balance and strength training. And before I end my presentation today, I'm going to make you do one really good strength exercise with me if you feel comfortable. So we'll get to that in a moment. Oh, actually, sorry, we're here. Okay. So what I'd like you to do, only if you've got a chair that is sturdy behind you, no wheels on it, okay? I have wheels on mine, but I can put it against something here. And only if you feel comfortable, I'd like you to stand up. And what we're gonna do, so you can't see my head now, but that's okay. We're gonna sit as slowly as we can. So I want you to pretend that there's an egg in your chair, and you're gonna slowly, you can put your hands on your knees for support. Slowly, you'll feel the burn in your thighs. Slowly bring yourself down. No plopping at the end. Whew. Okay, let's try that again. You'll stand up again, and we're gonna slowly, super slowly sit. And if you need to have a hand on the chair, that's okay, or a hand on the armrest of your chair, and you're gonna slowly sit. If you do that 3 to 5 times, multiple times a day, I promise you, your leg strength will get better. My thighs are burning, and I'm sure all of yours are burning too. If you have problems with your knees or knee pain when you do that, a little trick you can try is putting like a folded up thick blanket underneath you, so just to make it a little bit higher, and that should alleviate some of the pain on your knees. And again, this exercise will be in the videos in the link that was sent out. Okay, so just some final kind of tips here. So tips for increasing activity. If you sat slowly every single time you sat down, I think you would see a great improvement in your leg strength. We encourage folks to take the scenic route, so park further away. Take the long way, right? Especially if you're able to walk. Exercise while waiting for the kettle or toaster. So different exercises that you can do at home. And again, you'll see these in the videos, but different balance ones is standing on one leg. If that's a little bit too challenging, you can have put your feet right together and then try standing. Put one, like you can, the next progression would be like feet like this, and then feet like this, and then switch them. You can tightrope walk forwards, you can tightrope walk backwards. So lots of different things that you can try. And again, a lot of these will be in the videos that we sent. You do want to aim for 10 minutes of activity at a time. So that's a little bit of the sweet spot. There has been some research that's come out to say that doing 10 minutes of activity 3 times a day can be more beneficial than doing like 30 minutes all at once because you don't want to just do 30 minutes and then sit for the rest of the day. My physio that I used to work with at the Falls Clinic would say sitting is the new smoking. So you want to keep yourself moving. Balance or brushing your teeth, go to exercise classes. There's a ton available at senior centers. Challenging a friend, for some people, myself included, having a partner really makes me motivated because I feel like I can't let them down, and using an activity tracker. So, with the exercises in the link that we sent you, there is an activity tracker. So, you'll be able to track how many exercises you're doing and how many reps that you're doing and the days that you do them. So, it's a good program there. But the gist of it is to move more and sit less. And that brings me to the end. So, Paula and Chiquetta, you can put the last link in. So I'm going to put one final link into the chat, and that has the Ministry of Health's kind of updated Preventing Falls webpage. And it also talks about the 4 pillars and even some things that I didn't talk about today. And like I said, I'll be sharing these slides as well after this, as well as those links. So thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much. We just had a question whether this would um, being recorded and available, and the amazing Jaquetta has posted that. Once it's recorded and uploaded, it'll be available on the the website or YouTube. So, and that can come in, that'll come in your link as well. So thank you so much, Shianne. I learn things, and I'm always amazed at what I learn in these sessions. And I really didn't know that 811, I don't know if I actually cognitively had absorbed that it had changed and that there's more offerings there. That's amazing. And pumping your heels, I'm going to try and do that regularly because I have had elders in my life and I remember them saying about how things change and that you need to take time when you stand up. And I'd never heard of pumping your heels. I thought that was amazing too. And the vitamins, it's funny, you think you're doing all the right things, and there's something you can tweak sometimes that can make things better. And I already sent a message to someone I know, I think, who takes calcium and iron at the same time. So I was like, oh, who knew? So I'm learning, and I'm sure others are learning too. I'm just checking our chat. Um, but yeah, I appreciate it. It's lots of good information. And yeah, I think we can all benefit. Like I thought of a couple other situations, ironically, and not related to people, but our older senior dog has cataracts, and coming down the stairs, we
Yeah.
changed our stairs and it's all one color. And we sometimes navigate that in the dark just as a family. I don't know why we don't turn the light on. And so now we've learned, no, we got to turn the light on. And I'm like, we should do that for me too. We should never be
Aw.
walking downstairs in the dark. But yeah, but it makes you think so much. So that's great. Um,
And I'll send the link out for the subsidies for
oh, that's
eye exams.
fantastic
So
too.
then Paula and Jaquetta, you can send it out to everyone after.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and the link will be shared in the email too.
Perfect.
So yeah, and yeah, I think, yep, we got all those questions there. We'll just pause for another minute and I'll just do some thank yous as well. Um, Thank you, Chiquetta, for organizing us and for being support in the background. Thank you, Cheyenne, we have really appreciated you being here. I think it shows how important this information is. We had such good turnout, and thank you everybody for attending. I'm just gonna keep watching that little chat, and we encourage participants to attend other events scheduled for Embrace Aging Month. They go right to the end of the month, and there's some offered virtually and in person. And you can check the Okanagan EmbraceAging.com website, and it's been shared in the chat as well. So register and check out what's still available and some of those recordings when you get that link to Shianne's recording for the falls prevention. You can also check out the other recordings that some of them have been recorded previously from earlier this month. We look forward to growing this event in the Okanagan and encourage everyone interested in supporting Embrace Aging in the future to please contact us. Contact information is available on the website. Yeah, I'm just going to double check. There's some feedback. This was very helpful. Thank you. So good job, Shianne. Thank you. So you'll receive an email link to along with an online evaluation form. So we encourage you to provide feedback and provide any suggestions for planning for future events. So we appreciate you. Thank you for attending, and check one more time. Oh, yes, someone
Good
said,
point.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
putting dogs' leashes in around your wrist can be a challenge when you're walking your dog. And I've been there too. I actually had to take my dog for training to get her to not pull me over because
Oh,
she's
yeah.
such a powerhouse. She
Especially if
is,
I'm a big dog. Yeah, that's a great
right?
tip.
Yeah. And when they pull you. So yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, and someone else said great tips were provided. So good job, Cheyenne. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So, oh, we have another one. Oh,
Where
where
can
can
I
we find?
That's a good question.
I can tell a few things. Like I know there's some osteofit classes at Parkinson. So I would check out Recreation Kelowna. And the senior centers have some courses or classes. I know, for example, Rutland Activity Center and the Seniors Activity Center at Parkinson, they're separate organizations, but they work alongside the rec programs. But the actual senior centers offer chair yoga, I think, and other sessions as well. I think the rec center has, yeah, chair yoga as well. I teach chair yoga, so that's why I know that. um, but yeah, so there's other senior centers too that offer programs for exercises, and some are seated and some are standing. So there's lots of options out there. Yeah. Oh,
And then I'll just maybe add that you can call 811 and talk to the exercise professionals, and they might be able to connect you with classes in your area as well. So that might be another
nice.
resource.
And Diane has a question. I think we'll take you off mute there, and you can ask a question, Diane, if you'd like. Not see.
Diane, if you wish to ask a question, you will need to unmute your own mic.
So usually that's on the bottom menu bar and it says audio and you just click on it,
I
depending
think
what.
she might have put it in the chat. So Diane, thanks
Okay.
for I'll read out your question. So I'm
Okay.
surprised you made no
Good
mention
job.
of mindfulness, of being in the present moment and aware of what you're doing. I'm speaking from experience, having broken each wrist, and broken my tailbone and elbow. That sounds terrible. In every single case, the reason was a lack of mindfulness on my part. Thanks, Diane. Yeah, that kind of speaks a little bit to some of the behavioral risk factors, so some of the choices that you make, but I think you make a good point that we could add a little piece about making sure that we're being mindful and in the present and not rushing. I think rushing's probably a big piece of it as well. And I'm sorry to hear you had all those injuries. That's rough. But thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I think
Hmm.
busyness is and not focusing on what we're doing in the moment can be a challenge. I admitted to Cheyenne that I'd had a couple falls this year, and it was just by happenstance and not being as aware. So I noticed a question about where to do Tai Chi in Kelowna, and I think there is a Tai Chi offering at one of the senior centers, so I would reach out to them. And there's Tai Chi Kelowna, which I think you can find on Facebook. So And there, oh yeah, there's Tai Chi for beginners through the city of Kelowna, Recreation Kelowna. So I've seen a couple of those, but I have, I think they're very active. Oh, there, Jaquetta's got another one. Um, and Johnson Bentley in West Kelowna offers chair yoga and chair Pilates. Oh, chair Pilates would be interesting too. So that's awesome. That'll be a little bit of strength and a little bit of flexibility, sounds like. Yeah, great feedback. Everybody's building information together. Oh, I read that UBC has developed a program specific to prevent further falls and injury for seniors who have been injured falling. Do you know how to access this? No,
I'm
but
not aware of the UBC one. I know that in Vancouver, I think it might be a partnership with UBC. They've got the Vancouver Fall Prevention Clinic, and Fraser Health has one as well. So, um, we don't have that in the interior, unfortunately. But I'll look into that UBC one, and if I find anything, I'll have Paula and Chiquetta send it out with the emails. So thanks for bringing that forward.
oh, I found some training information, but maybe not so much. Um, there's falls prevention, UBC's Balance and Falls Research Center. I'll just put it in here just so you have it, but um, Cheyenne may have better luck with more specific. Uh, yeah, it's always there's always information out there, so that's good that you're asking how to find it. So it's amazing how many people are working on this because it's important, right? It's important for individuals, it's important for community, it's important for our families to know we're safe. So I appreciate it, Cheyenne. Let's see. We have a little bit of time, so I'm just going to make sure we haven't missed.
Yeah,
I'm
those
not
Rocky
sure.
residents access to Vancouver, they can't, unfortunately. It's in person at Vancouver General Hospital, and the Fraser Health one's in person as well. Um, so yes, unfortunately, you cannot access those.
I wonder if there are other ones. So I'm just having a quick
I
look.
think we have one in out of Kelowna. It's not called a fall prevention clinic. It's called a seniors wellness clinic, maybe, or something along those lines. But we don't have the same kind of robust fall prevention specific ones that
Gotcha.
Vancouver Coastal and Fraser Health have. Yeah.
There is the OsteoFit course, which is,
Mhm.
specific, but it's also got a falls prevention piece in it at Recreation Kelowna. And I
Mhm.
noticed Sun City Physio offers fall prevention, not that I'm promoting individuals, but yeah, there's other physios that offer fall prevention exercises too. If you Google falls prevention programs in Kelowna or in your community, it's amazing what will come up, but we can share what we can too. Yeah. Let's see. Gonna just double check that we covered all the questions. Yeah, all good questions. Thank you for all the engagement. I'm just gonna, yeah, I think we covered it all. So thank you again for taking time for presenting and sharing what you know and your experience and I yeah, thank everybody for attending.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.